Welcome back to Next Up Haunted Adventures podcast. I'm Shelby.
I'm Tony.
And today we're going to be discussing the maybe popular and also unpopular opinion of being touched in a haunted house.
Ugh.
You don't sound like you're very into being touched. In a haunted house, of course.
In a haunted house, of course. It's a weird dynamic because I know that you're supposed to be afraid. That's the thing that they don't. Okay, I guess I shouldn't say they want you to be afraid or anything like that. They don't want you to be frightened for your life, but like I don't know. There's a lot of people out there that have that type of thing where it feels like it'll get too real for me. So like being touched during some sort of haunt like this, I'd probably freak out. I don't know. It would send people to me into like a fight or flight mode. So I'm not for it, but I understand that with that type of like a haunt, you'd probably have to sign like some sort of a waiver.
And you would be wrong.
What? That's
you
not
do
cool.
Not. And that was actually you're actually responding to a question I was about to ask you.
Okay.
So with a lot of haunted houses, I don't know how you feel about this. You're supposed to do some sort of research going into them, whether online's a great resource. You go to their website,
right.
You discover kind of what they're about. They have a story. They kind of explain what's going to happen to you. Because waivers, it'd be too much to sign every single time. It's person. Assuming when you buy a ticket, you do not get refunds, and everything on that ticket is explained. So if you don't read your ticket, but basically when you're buying your ticket is when you're signing, saying it's okay for me to get touched in this haunted house. If on their website and in their contract they say that they are a touch-based haunted house.
Right.
If they do not elaborate on that, if they say they're a no-touch haunted house and you get touched, that's another story.
Right. Exactly. But man, okay, well that makes sense. That actually makes a lot more sense because of what you had said as far as you having to do the research for it or something like that, because it would take up a lot of time to get a bunch of different people to sign some sort of a waiver or anything like that. It is more prudent to do it that way, but that's kind of shitty.
I see what you're saying there. For people who care, that can be an issue. I personally don't care whether or not in a haunted house if they're going to touch me. The only part, I like to do my research beforehand because I want to know, and it's not that I want to expect it so I don't get scared. It's not like that for me. It's I want to know because I want to see when I write these reviews if the actors are actually following the rules set by their bosses.
Right.
And that's, people have contacted me like saying this has been an issue before, like we're not a touch-based haunted house and one of our actors touched you, and it's like, it's not a big deal for me, but the actors should probably be following the rules.
Right.
That's happened in several different haunted houses, none of which I complained about, but I like to let people know that this is what could happen, and also let the bosses know this is what's happening in your haunt. You don't want to be facing a lawsuit, because they could technically, potentially, someone could sue them for being touched, especially if by chance that person gets the smallest cut or gets hurt.
Well, Shelby, the whole story of this podcast that we're doing right now is to get me into a haunted house, right?
Yeah.
You saying this isn't helping.
Well, okay, so the one I'm looking at taking you first, because you mentioned with your haunted hayride that that was your first experience. I want to make that a good experience.
Oh, of course.
So the first place I'm actually thinking of taking you, since you mentioned that would be a good place, is Spooky Ranch, because it's a family-friendly haunt. Ooh. But I've heard nothing but, I've heard bad reviews from it, but majority are good reviews.
Okay.
Most from families with kids, and
oh yay.
They're not based around gore. They have a haunted house more centered for adults, but it doesn't have any nudity or sexual content, and I believe they don't have any amount of gore or blood in the scenery. So it's going to be interesting to see how they compensate for the lack of all those things, but that's what could make it really good, is because when you don't expect it, or they're taking away all the things people assume are going to be in a haunted house, and you can still do so much even taking that away.
There's something to be said for like subverting the expectation, because like you said, if this is to be true, that they have like no gore, it's more family friendly, but there's like the mindset of going into it of oh, this is nice, this is family friendly, oh, something scared me. And then it could take a turn to where it could just be more suspenseful, more like thought-provoking, as opposed to like, ooh, I have this headless person in front of me. Like, okay, I could be down for that.
Yeah, and that's why for this coming season, that's not the only one I want to take you to, and I would like it to be your first, but I haven't checked their dates yet. I will in July, and hopefully everyone will be updated by then for their haunt season. But in the rare chance that they're not open in September, it's going to have to not be your first haunt, which will be sad. I want it to be your first haunt, but hopefully they'll be open in September.
Yeah,
if not, Erebus is generally open early.
Okay.
In September.
Let's get a bunch of people.
They're a good haunt. Yeah, I want to take a lot of people, especially to that one. It's more of a fun house type haunted house.
Okay.
I don't think it's honestly that scary, but they do have a touch policy. They're allowed to touch you. However, it's not the actors that are going to necessarily do it. It's the animatronics.
Okay.
So I've been through there a couple times now. They don't change it up every year. The only thing that changes up is their staff. So maybe the acting talent will be a little bit different or a monster here and there.
Right.
But generally, they're the same all year round. They don't change it up, so I'll know what to expect. And if I have to, I can. If you're getting freaked out or someone else is, I can cue you into what's going to happen.
Okay.
The other thing that Erebus is known for, and very well known for, is burying you alive. And let me say, after doing it now a couple different times, yes, it does feel that way. You can't move. You can barely breathe. But what they're covering in, you don't really see it. It's dark, but they're just like ball pit balls.
Okay.
That's all that's covering you.
It still sucks.
And they drain away very quickly. They're not going to do that because some people can't handle that. And they just put you in a really small room. It's going to be claustrophobic, but someone will be there to hold your hand. You're not going to go through there alone.
So what would you classify Erebus as? Like would you, because we talked about family friendly. Is that just, because we had talked, we had also made like a discussion about how extreme haunts or things like that were.
I have different classifications, and yes, I do rate on a 1 to 10 scale.
Right.
However, I don't think when I give a haunted house like a 5 or a 4, that's not all that bad. Like a 4 would be pretty average, and if it's a local haunted house and the owner doesn't have a lot of experience, that's very good.
Right.
I've been very impressed with stuff that I've even given a 4.
Right.
Anything below that is probably not really meeting of expectations, especially if it's like a major haunt like Erebus. There's no reason why it shouldn't be at least a 6.
Right.
There's no reason. They have the funding, they have the staff, they have everything they have at their disposal, so unless something goes drastically wrong in planning for this season, they should be able to make up for whatever lack they have. Going into it, there are local, there's the more corporate-owned haunts. However, yes, family-friendly haunts. Those are still fun to go to.
Right.
A lot of haunts will advertise that they're family-friendly. It's debatable.
There's no there's no criteria.
There's criteria, but a lot of haunts nowadays, and it's part of something we'll dive into. We talk about more about pop culture and haunts.
Okay.
Is they're varied. They'll be open later. They'll be open instead of 2 days a week. They'll be open like Friday through Sunday, but Sunday is like adult night now, or Friday is like adult night now for haunts. So that way they can jump on the bandwagon that they have an adult night and they have a child-friendly, family-friendly night.
The all-ages type of event.
Yeah, and they'll also have stuff sometimes before the haunted attractions even open to try to draw more people. The goal is to get everyone of every age out to this place to draw money in, but you can see where that also might damper if they're not drawing from one as opposed to the other.
Exactly.
It's a very risky move in my opinion, but also very smart.
Well, it's a tightrope act.
Yeah.
You gotta make sure that you don't lean too heavily to one side or lean too heavily to the other side, because you want to make a revenue stream from any source possible. So it makes sense to do an adult night. It also makes sense to do a family night, but you gotta do it at the right time. It's I don't know from experience. I don't know any of that stuff, but it feels like it's this hugely sensitive thing.
Yes, and aside from family, I wouldn't classify Erebus as a necessarily family-friendly haunt, because whereas there's not really a lot of blood or gore, if any, in there, there's very little, but they do touch, and sometimes the impact of the animatronics can be kind of startling.
Okay.
If not, for an adult startling, for a child it might be more than
damaging.
Outright. It could be damaging for a child, in all honesty, especially with height differences.
Right.
I wouldn't classify Erebus as a family-friendly by any means.
Right.
I think you should be at least 13 to go in there, but I think a 13-year-old still has every right to pee himself in there. Because honestly, what they implement and how long you're going through it, it's about probably last for 45 minutes going through everything.
Oh, wow.
It's a long duration. You're going up and down stairs. It's 3 floors. I believe it's 3 floors.
So would you consider a fitness haunt?
Yes. Oh yes. That shouldn't even be a class, but that and Rotten Manor, because Rotten Manor has you like climb up things and.
Oh jeez.
It was a blast. It was the most expensive haunted house next to Haunted Hoochie that I've been to, but I didn't even buy VIP tickets there. Regular tickets were $40 a person for both haunts, which sounds expensive, but. Each haunt took like a half an hour to go through.
And you got an experience.
Oh yeah. It's as soon as you walk in through their path, it's a nonstop, like they're trying to scare you, even with their little kids running around, which is a whole nother pop culture thing there, because I don't believe kids were ever used to be in haunted houses, but now it's starting to become a thing.
Yeah, there's like this push to make that type of stuff more commonplace.
And it's also like it's one extreme or the other, which will bring us to our next topic, which we'll have to wait to next episode. Unfortunately,
oh, darn it!
We're going to talk about the very extreme haunts that some people don't consider haunted attractions because of the type of tactics that they implement on sometimes a nightly basis every day of the year.
Ooh, so some stuff that I want to stay away from is what you're doing.
That's stuff I would stay away from.
Oh, jeez.
I'm not into that level of stuff.
We'll get into that at the next episode.
So until next time, bye.
Bye.